So without further ado, let's break into what I call the ServiceNow landscape. And Lalit, I'm going to go to you first. What are the key areas that you can do to get information, and how do you navigate those?
As a ServiceNow, we provide various portals, channels, and communities to our users, customers to interact with the product, to know what is coming in the product, to communicate with the group. So Now Learning is one of the portal, which is a learning portal where you get all the access, right? What are the certification I want to do? What training I want to do? This is the portal where you can search what you want to do. Like you can go and search hardware asset management, and you can do at your pace. It's not necessary you have to complete everything in one shot. You can do 1 hour now, and then whenever you are free, you can continue from where you left. You can do certification, you can do hands-on practice, it has simulators, so on. The another platform we are giving is the product information, which is a document website. Here you find that anything related to not only about the ServiceNow platform, but any of our business unit, HAM, SAM, or Cloud Insight, or if you are interested how it is linked with other business unit, FSM, CSM, anything. What are the new features it coming, all release management, configuration, how I create the asset, how I create the class, what are the tables, what are different flows. So once you go to the item asset management, under that you have 3 items like software asset management, hardware asset management, cloud insight. And then when you go to the hardware asset management, you can go particularly, you can look into the contract management, so on. Anything required to know about the past or what is current about the product, how to use it, what it is, it's a good portal to go through it. The third portal is item community. When we say community, is like we collaborating or talking to the different people to understand their viewpoint. So it contains various groups about the hardware asset management, forums, what are the important. So these are not only the ServiceNow platform or forum, but external forums also. You can go and submit your idea. So you have anything you think which is good to be in product, you can submit your idea, and the product team, Mike, myself, or Eric, or anybody from the product success team can review it and provide their inputs. And then there's our blogs, there is a developer community, so many things you can do. So I think these 3 portals are the good source to get any information about the product, about the platform, about the service now, what is coming, what is future, and what other people are doing.
Yeah, that's great. So the Now Learning is really your educational portal, and then the product information, I consider that kind of like your how-to or your instruction manual. Gives you all the terms. It gives you a deep dive into some of the product features, and like you said, you can go retroactively looking at different releases if you're on a different release, and you can see what applicable product information there is for a specific release. And in the ITAM community, like you said, you can interact with other individuals that are in the space that you're in, right? So in the hardware asset management world, there's a lot of practitioners that have many different types of questions, a lot of them very similar questions. And so you can find posts on their blogs and knowledge articles related to those questions. So those are, I think you're right. That's like the trifecta of an area where you can get a lot of the answers to those commonly asked questions. Maybe we can jump into some of those and look at those and just kind of get a visual representation of how somebody would navigate between those. Mike, do you want to show us that?
So we're going to start with the training portal, and this is for all ServiceNow modules and products. I have the hardware asset management fundamentals up here. This is a great place to start. When you load this up and you do a search, you'll be able to see here what the actual course is, how long the level of effort will be for the course. And this is an intermediate level course. It's on demand. So everything you need to know is right here. They do put together an overview and a syllabus. So if you're looking for some specific items, you'll be able to dive into it. And it also gives you some related courses that go along with it very well. When we do search for hardware asset management, you're going to see a lot of different things that will come up to enforce that. Once you've gotten this fundamentals, it's highly recommended that you take the Delta examination. So if you took the fundamentals in Paris, there's been a lot of new stuff that's happened. So with each release, we have a Delta certification that you can go through to keep you abreast of all the new features and functionality in the new releases. And you can see all the various ham related courses here. There's peak trainings and some quick hitters. Some of them are just simple videos, and then you'll earn stars and badges as you complete them. So you can get you can get some cool digital swag for completing these. But it's a great way to increase your knowledge of the platform and learn how to use it better.
Yeah, that's huge. I would just say the Delta thing is not something to overlook, right? Taking ham fundamentals is, you have it, but then things change. So you want to stay fresh in the game. So I think that's a really good pointer.
So this is our official trading portal, but a lot of times we don't have time to invest 11 hours into a training to figure out an issue or find an error. So we put product documentation out every time we build a new feature. We have a team that puts together new documentation for it. So if I was doing something with hardware model normalization, you can see here I've searched it recently. I could come in here and I can search it. I could filter by release. So if I'm only on Rome and I haven't upgraded to San Diego yet, I could pick that and actually filter my results based on that. And then I could even drill down, like, do I just want to see possibly, an impact or, release notes or any other things. I could drill down and filter my results as well. But then when you click into these topics here, you'll see all the details that you need to see, allowing you to kind of self-resolve. And if you have questions, maybe you could figure them out here. Sometimes if I have a question about a table or like a log like this, I will actually search just for that as a keyword, and that'll pull me into all that. So there's lots of different things you can do to self-resolve on your own. Now, if you can't self-resolve and maybe training isn't for you, then you can always put yourself out there in the community. As Lilith had mentioned, we have a ServiceNow community here. And this is a great area. It's where, employees of ServiceNow, like myself and Lilith, partners, customers, the entire ServiceNow community can meet here, post questions, write blog posts, put up videos. You can simply just, if you want to jump in and do a search, I can just come in here and I can search for hardware asset, and you can see all the forum posts and blogs around asset management. It does take a second to load up. And you can see here, this is all the content that's been posted, forums. We have knowledge and documentation. So everything is central here to drill in and find out. So if I want to look into normalization, I could come in here and just not, I don't have to type the full word. I can just punch it in. There's no request. So if there's nothing in there, I can ask a question. I can click this and I can tag it and I can post a question, and other people can answer it. And this is a lot of times our first chance if we're confused. And maybe it's before we submit a high ticket, maybe there's a user error, so we can go in and ask the community. It's a great tool. Before I started my journey with ServiceNow, I was a ServiceNow customer. And during our white-knuckled self-implementation project, I found myself riding and dying by the community here. Then when I became a partner, I also and worked on implementations with other customers. Once again, spent a lot of time on the community. And then now as an employee, it's full circle. So it's definitely something that I would keep bookmarked and be as active as you can.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Mike. I mean, again, three areas where you can get information. The other thing I just mentioned on the community is you're going to get responses from other practitioners in the field, but you're also going to get responses from, different solution consultants, even Mike, even Lilith. I mean, you might have you guys responding in there every now and then. So you're going to get a lot of interaction, a lot of different voices answering some of those questions.
Absolutely.
Thanks for walking us through. And let's talk about the next segment, which is what is the sequence of events you need to set up and install hardware asset management so that you can get quick value out of the gates. So Lilith, I'm going to turn back over to you, and maybe you can walk us through the sequence of events for that.
So for hardware asset management to be active and start using hardware asset management, you need a ServiceNow instance. And when you have a ServiceNow instance, that is ITSM platform, you will get a base asset management with it. When base asset management plugin provides you the classes, the base classes, it provides you the table, so on, which people are be doing customizing so far. And then it provide you mobile receiving. The mobile receiving capabilities is where you can receive the asset from your mobile devices. And then another plugin you need is the procurement plugin. The procurement plugin provides you about the purchase order, sourcing, catalog. This is the base procurement. There is another procurement module which is coming up, and that is workspace based, and that is a different, and that's the lesser one. And then performance analytic plugin provides you, is required for the dashboard, the hardware dashboard, the asset dashboards. And the another plugin is hardware model normalization, which is one of the key features we'll discuss in today's webinar, also go deep into it. And this is for doing the normalization, standardization of the model. So once you have these base plugins, you are ready to do anything with asset. And then comes the hardware asset management, which is built over the base asset management, and it is a store app. So when it comes the store app, you need to do high request. The high request will go to our sales or account team. The other thing, you can connect with the alliance manager, the partner, or you can connect with the sales account guy and request it. They can provide you the hardware asset management store apps. And you can, once you install the latest one, you get access to all the latest workflows, the features we are adding over the base asset management, the new classes, new tables, the flows, and new contract management, so on.
Got it. So that's a really key distinction, I think, and then I just want to resurface it. So the plugins are the fundamental piece that gives you the base asset capabilities, right? Anything that is asset management in particular. But it's the next step or the next level, actually getting that store app, which is actually going to enable you to do a lot more than just base asset, right? It's going to give you what we call HAM, the life cycle information, the automations behind those, and everything else that we're building on top of HAM from a product and feature perspective.
And I just want to call something out here. So this chart here is just showing these are the steps that need to be enabled for HAM Pro to be successful and working. So, we have to ensure that the plugins are enabled. We're assuming that this is for someone who is already a HAM customer, but before we can, graduate to using HAM, we need to make sure that these base building blocks are on and running and enabled.
Oh, thanks, Mike. Thank you. So now that you have HAM, let's just say, are you ready to just start using it? It sounds like there's a configuration component. Can we dive in on that a little bit some more?
HAM guided setup is a great help for administrators. It provides a guided setup experience to activate HAM feature. And why you need it? ServiceNow customer need a streamlined experience to set up HAM features and track progress of their HAM feature activation process. HAM guided setup is available when installing or upgrading to HAM Tokyo release. So basically this is part of the Tokyo, and you need to be either installing Tokyo release or upgrading to Tokyo. So once you have a Tokyo release, you can go to your instance, and you can see on my screen, I have an insert, and then you type HAM, and you will be able to see HAM guided setup. This guided setup walks you through the core configuration involved in setting up the hardware asset management applications. It provides you visibility into end-to-end hardware asset lifecycle and reduce the risks created by the asset record inaccuracies. So once you start up this, you will be able to see the Getting Startup window. You click on the Getting Startup, and you will be able to see currently it includes two categories. One is configuration, and the second one is normalization. Under configuration, when you click on the configuration, get started, you will see various items like resource obtain, content, service setup, asset automation. So resource category obtain is basically, now we have added the capabilities where you can select which all resources you want to be normalized as a part of the content. So basically activate hardware model normalization and automate update to the product model and asset record for each ham lesson. So based on what you have selected, they will get normalized. Then content service setup and opt-in. Basically in this is where you are trying to set up the content and shares hardware and consumable data model for your organization with ServiceNow to improve normalization process. The third thing is you need to set up is asset automation, basically asset action for incident and change. So automate the data attribute update to CI, asset and maintenance contact record when completing incident and change ticket. The fourth is asset lifecycle catalog item. A lot of the requests are triggered from a catalog item. So by default, these catalog items are not visible. You need to activate by going to the service catalog. And then asset lifecycle flow. So you need to activate this flow provided for asset by the ham in ServiceNow Flow Designer. And the last thing under the configuration category is a contract workflow. So we need to go to the configuration workflow and activate the workflows related to contract and hardware asset management. So once you click on this, like if you click on this resource opt-in, you will be able to see what all resource you want to opt in, and you can opt out whatever you want. And once you are done, you can mark it as a complete. Similarly, when you want to do for the content, you can click on the configuration and you can click here and mark it completed. Similarly, for the other items like asset automation, it will take you to the incident page where you can click what all you want to sync with the CIs. And let's go back to the second part. The second part here we have is a normalization, basically the hardware model normalization detail for your hardware and consumable model. So once to do that, you need to click on get started. Under this, you will see two categories. One is hardware content download. This initiate the ServiceNow hardware content download to populate your hardware content library. And second one is hardware model normalization. Basically normalize your asset data to the standardize your hardware and consumable model. To configure hardware content model, you can open this and you can change any of those properties daily, weekly, whatever you want. These are by default provided schedules. And then to configure the hardware model normalization, you can click on the configuration, which will allow you to configure the execution steps of the step. So this is, in short, these capabilities guided setup help the customer to start implementing or to make sure that what is required is done step by step using this process.
Thank you for the demo, Lalit. Victor, what do we have next?
Hardware normalization is our next topic in the content service. So we started answering some of those questions. And Mike, you made an allusion here to how data is coming in. So maybe you can talk to us about how HAM is working and then emphasize a little bit on the content service.
Absolutely. So one of the challenges all organizations face is there's a lot of doors that data can enter the organization through, right? We have our discovery tool. We have other agents that may be integrated with service graph connectors going through the CMDB. So you could be pulling in data from SCCM. So it could be coming in all caps. You could have data coming in from Jamf, Tanium, SolarWinds, whatever integration hub connections you guys have put together or service graph connections that are in place. We've got data streaming in, and oftentimes that can be unique to whoever configured it on that end. So the admin for SCCM may have their own rules for data quality. And so when all these data points come in, sometimes you have inconsistencies, right? And one of the things I alluded to is, sometimes one data source will be in all capital letters. Maybe it's capturing Hewlett Packard, and another data source is just coming in as HP. And then the third procurement system maybe be coming in as Hewlett Packard Industries, or so on and so forth. So what we do is we take all that data and it goes through our content service. So whether it's coming in from discovery, from a procurement tool, if you're using advanced shipping notices, that's coming from the vendors, or you're doing an integration with the vendor, or maybe we're using spreadsheets or bringing data in from if you're moving from one system into ServiceNow. What we tend to find too is often with asset management, it can often be siloed. So you can have one organization using a DCIM tool for their data center equipment, and an asset management tool for their end user equipment, and then a mobile device management tool for their mobile devices. So when we bring all of these data points in together, you're going to have a lot of inconsistencies. So once it goes into the normalization engine, we bounce up the model number, the model name, and the manufacturer against our content service, our content library. And I'll talk in a minute on how the content service is created and curated. But for now, we have millions and millions of models mapped, and it's all based on really what's being used by our customers in their environment. So by doing this, we're going to end up with a clean manufacturer name. We're going to end up with a product name and a model name, because an example here is we've got the MacBook Pro 15-inch. There could be 100 different model numbers for that MacBook Pro 15-inch. They could vary by region. Different countries have different power cords. So you want to make sure from a reporting standpoint, you have a clean entry, but you also want to be sure you have the specific model number as well. We also, by doing this, we also can provide the manufacturer's published lifecycle dates. Now, what's that mean? So in some cases, when a vendor puts out a model, they'll say this goes general availability on August 1st. You'll be able to start buying these. And we're going to stop selling them August 1st in 3 years. And we're going to stop supporting them on August 1st in 4 years, so on and so forth. Sometimes they don't have all the dates, and that gets updated and it gets curated and updated down the road. So that being said, all this information will strengthen your asset repository. It'll help give better information at the fingertips of people that are making decisions, whether it's to replace an asset. If I'm doing a break fix and I can see that this laptop's going end of support in a month, why not just give them a newer model? Why not swap it out for one I'm going to have to swap out soon anyway? If I can see that a server is going end of life in a year, I can start planning my tech refresh cycle. If I'm using SPM, portfolio management, I can look at my service and I can see all the hardware and software, and I can use these lifecycle dates to make sure that service is healthy and that it'll be available for everyone. And from a security standpoint, I can ensure that I'm not going to be at risk of any compliance or vulnerability issues by maintaining hardware that's currently healthy and it's supposed to be used and it's not past its useful life. Because often when an asset's no longer being supported or past its useful life, you're not getting patches, you're not getting the latest updates. So you can have a lot of issues down the road. So if we can flip to the next slide, I'm going to kind of talk about how the content service works. So we have a content services team that is curating and constantly adding new models to the content library. As a customer, once you've opted in, you will get an update every couple of weeks of all the new model information. Okay. One thing to be clear about is we hear this a lot. Customers will turn on the stuff that Lilith was just speaking to. They'll turn on Ham Pro, they'll fire up all the plugins, they'll opt into the resource categories, and then they'll run and look at their normalization and it'll be at 0%. Well, it takes a minute, right? It may take a day or two for things to settle in, for all those millions of model mappings to be loaded into your environment. So you have to be a little bit patient. It will come. And there's business rules that need to run to normalize your data. So once that happens, then it'll get caught up. So if you do have models that are not normalized, there could be a few different reasons, right? Maybe you're missing manufacturer information or model information. You're missing some of the data that's required for the normalization to run. We need to have that data there. We can't normalize a blank field. So maybe a PO came in that was missing a model or part number. Maybe it had a manufacturer name and it had a vendor SKU number, not the actual model number, but the vendor that say CDW puts in a part number, but it's not the actual manufacturer part number. Well, we don't normalize against SKU numbers. We actually use the actual part numbers. So any unrecognized model information gets anonymously sent to our content team, and they build a file that contains all this anonymous data, and that's what they use for their next content that they create. So if we have a bunch of customers sending over a server that may be new and we didn't know about, then our content team will go in there and they will create that. They use a handful of verified resources to create the data. And like I said before, the lifecycle dates are all published by the vendor. We don't use third-party dates. We don't guess the date. We only use validated and verified manufacturer dates. So as that new content is updated and created and curated and validated, and it ships back in your next release. So it's a constant cycle for improvement. So sometimes it may take a few weeks for things to get fully normalized, depending on what your data quality is like. But for the most part, it fires right off.
Nice. So one of the other main benefits of opting in to the content service, if I got that right, was that you're actually giving your anonymous data, and I'll highlight that again, anonymous data that is not normalized into the content service so that it can come back in a normalized state, and so that others can also benefit from having a normalized, enhanced normalized state.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate that. Maybe Mike, one thing I'd like to do is kind of get into the product, but before we do that, could you kind of set the stage on how hardware normalization works? And then Lalit, I'll ask you to maybe show us briefly in the product how that actually operates.
Sure. So like I said before, no matter how the data is coming in, when it hits our normalization engine, it's looking for three items, right? We need to know who made it. We need to know the model number and what the product name is. If we have those three pieces of information, in most cases, we're going to have a normalized value for that. If you're missing one of those pieces, we may show a partially normalized result. Now, one of the things I want to point out, if a model went through normalization already, every time that gets discovered going forward, it will be normalized after. So once it's come up once, if discovery keeps coming back with the same non-normalized result, you won't even see it. It'll hit your, it's instant. It will hit it instantly. So as the data comes in, as long as we have those three items, it'll populate. And just to call out, it's not going to, there was another question around, and Jennifer had a question around if you have a different naming convention for something. It's not going to change the current naming convention. Lilith's going to show you here in a second. There's going to be a separate area that you'll be able to report off of. It'll be normalized manufacturer. So we're not actually going in and updating the company table because it's a core table that a lot of other applications use. We're going to have a normalized manufacturer table that you can use as a display value and you could report against. And I hope that makes some sense.
Yeah, so in other words, you're retaining the raw data, but you're displaying the normalized view, and you can build reports and do what you need to in HAM through the display name, but you still retain the authentic original data source.
Yep.
So Lalit, over to you to kind of show us a little bit of how does this work.
Are you able to see my screen?
We see it.
Okay. So I'm sharing one of the ServiceNow instance. Once you go to the ServiceNow instance, you go to the workspace, and I will show it on the workspace. You click on the hardware asset workspace, and under that we have the model management. As Mike pointed out, we have an important action where you can show that missing model number or missing useful life or missing name or the manufacturer, whatever the record are, you click here, you will be able to see those records and you can take action accordingly. And then we have reports. So you can see that normalization matrix. It shows that total 165 models are available on this instance, out of which 154 are normalized and 11 are not normalized. If I click on the data, it will show me the list of the models which are normalized And let's select one of the model. So ThinkPad P490 is one of the model which has been normalized. And when we go here, we can go to the normalization section and we can see the normalized status which shows as normalized. As part of the normalized, yeah, one thing I want to bring before I go to the hardware model lifecycle, we have a revert normalization. The revert normalization is basically what you have normalized, you can revert it back and then it will deactivate the rule also. Next time when the sync is happening or the content download is happening, it will act only on the activative rules.
I see.
So now when you have normalized, it will have a hardware model life cycle, what Mike described. So end of the life cycle will tell you about what is the start date and what is the end date of this particular model. And similarly, general availability will tell you about how many years this model is available from the start date to the end date. All of these data are synchronized through the standard once you opt in into our content services. So this data now you have all of these data. What is the importance for me? If you look from you, it basically try to make sure that you are compliance and you plan your procurement or inventory better, and you make sure that you are not maintaining it much more the model which has expired. Now let's go back to the model management and try to create one model. So once we are on the model management, we have added a new button. So here we have added the one which you are using more frequently. So user from this single dashboard, you can go anywhere what is required for the model management. Let's click on this and then you can see we have various kind of models which are supported in the ServiceNow platform. And then let's select the hardware because today we are discussing about the hardware asset management. Let me select the Dell as the manufacturer and give the name as Power Edge and then give the model number as R420 and category as server. So you can see once I have created them and moment I do click on the save, the display name which is blank right now, it will get normalized and you will see the data as normalization.
And Lilette, I just want to point out, this is happening in real time as he's creating this model. If you scroll down, you can see it just normalized right here as that model was created. And this is from a manual creation, or if it could be created from a new discovery as well.
I will show it here itself, like it is 165 and now I will refresh in front of you and you can see 166. One more model is normalized. It was 154, now we have 155. And if I go on the normalize and search for this model and I type for R420, you can see here this now is normalized, where you can see the normalized and then you can see that hardware model life cycles are added here. One more thing I want to add that we have better together with application management portfolio, which I do not have on this instance. When you go to from the application portfolio management, when you go to the technology portfolio management, you can see the alerts which can show you the red color mean that something is expiring or end of life is coming, so you can do better planning of your asset inventory and procurement and you can take much of the decisions. Back to you, Victor.
I appreciate that, Lalit. So the other thing that I think is important to note, if not all of your models are normalized, maybe you have partially normalized, maybe you have manually normalized. Those that are partially normalized or just not normalized, those are the ones that you can actually take some time as a leading practice with your organization to go through and work on normalizing those while you're also workflowing the everything else that is normalized. So I think that's a good balance of work there. And then the APM slide that you just showed us there, yeah, you're right. That's a better together story where you can benefit from using two two applications at once, the life cycle feeding the APM.
And one of the things that I want to call out here is there are a lot of other tools that will do normalization, right? That you could do integrations with whatever asset management tool you're using. What makes this unique is this is built in the ServiceNow platform. So one of the things that Victor just called out is, yes, this will benefit APM. It'll also benefit incident, risk management, audits, all kinds of other areas within the platform as well. Somebody asked the question about a strategy of how you move from Flexera to ServiceNow. Stop paying for Flexera. That's it. And you turn on the normalization, and it's going to give you the same quality and quantity of data that you're getting now, but with one less license to have to re-up and pay for each year. And plus, it's giving you all that lifecycle data into a platform that can process it and do a lot of other things with it. So